Hello students, welcome to our e-learning day. Today we're going to be completing a writing workshop using our formula that we learned earlier in this week to make a simile, and then we're going to jump over into coggle and we are going to make a coggle out of the simile we write and then use that to make a short 3 or 4 line poem. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you remember that when we do the formula, we have to have 3 columns. First an A, then C goes in the middle, and then last we do the B column. Now remember, A has to be an object or a thing. We need a noun to go in here. And then in our C column, we want there to be an adjective, something that describes the noun from our A column. And then in our B column, we want another noun that can also be described with the same adjective from the C column. So, when I was thinking about this today, the first word that came to mind was an elephant. Now, when I think of elephants, the adjective that comes to mind right away is big. Elephants are quite large. If you've ever seen one at the zoo, they are big. And now, when I try to think of something else that's big, I know what else is big: the house. Okay, so if we were going to turn this into a simile, what we'd want to do is we could do it 2 ways, right? We can say the elephant is like a house, which somebody listening would probably understand. Certainly an elephant is like a house. But to help us write a little bit more easily with the poem, we're going to use as instead, okay? So we're going to say an elephant is as big as a house. And there we go. That might be the first line of our poem, so we'll just kind of scooch that down here. And then we're going to take elephant, big, and house. We're going to jump over into Coggle app and get started. All right, so remember that in the middle of your coggle is going to be the word of your adjective. So in our case, that's big. Now we're going to add 2 lines going off, one to the right, where we're going to put in the word house, and then we'll put in another one, drag it over to the other side, and in there, I'll write the word elephant. Okay, so we have our 3 words there, and now let's go ahead and try to think of some words that describe an elephant or a house. Take a second and think of a word that describes a house or a part of a house. Did you come up with something? Well, when I think about it, the first thing I think about a house is a house has a roof. Without the roof, it gets really wet at night and cold. So we certainly need a roof with our house. The next thing that comes to mind for me are the windows. It's really dark in the house without the windows, isn't it? So basically I guess I'm listing more the parts of a house, aren't I? What else does a house have? A house has a chimney, and a house also has made of bricks. At least the house we're describing today is going to be a brick house, so that'd be great. Okay, so now let's think if we can come up with some words for an elephant. Go ahead and take a second. What would you write as the first word of thinking of elephants? Well, what I came up with was gray. Elephants are gray. And I'm going to start thinking about some other elephant parts that are kind of fun. I think of their nice floppy ears, kind of like Dumbo, huh? So they have their big ears. And then one more, I guess. Oh, well, of course, we have to mention that the elephant has a trunk. Very cool, huh? All right, so now when you have a couple descriptive words for your nouns or words that are associated with your nouns, let's try to think of a couple other adjectives that are very similar to big. So huge comes to mind for me. And the other one that comes to mind is how about gigantic? That's kind of a big word, but that also means big. Okay, so there it is. We have our coggle. What we're going to do now, we're going to grab a screenshot here. Let's see. We're going to put that into our notepad and take a look at how it looks and see if it can help us. All right, here it is. Okay, well, there's our coggle right there. Now, we're going to try to write a quick little poem here using some of the words in our coggle and see what we can come up with. All right, so it starts with an elephant is as big as a house. You know what? First thing, I want to make this an exclamation point. I want to be excited about the fact that the elephant is so huge. Okay, so what else about him? Well, maybe I'll use huge again, huh? He is huge and gray. All right, that kind of takes care of the gray part. Let's talk about his ears. Let's see, what are his ears? I want his ears to be doing something, so I'm going to say his ears flop around. How about in the breeze? Painting some picture of it. We're outside somewhere fun. All right, the next thing, well, I'm looking at that. I got trunk. Now maybe I can relate trunk back to a house. Can you see a word over in the house column that might look a little bit like a trunk or might be related to a trunk? Go ahead and take a second to look. It's either going to be roof, windows, chimney, or bricks. Which one do you think? Well, if you thought chimney, you are correct. That is what I'm thinking. I think a chimney can be long and stick out of the top of the house, and our elephant's trunk can also stick out of the top of our elephant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the elephant lifts his head and lifts his head, and then I'll put a comma. And instead of saying his trunk, I'll use the word chimney instead. And I bet our readers will understand, considering that I just mentioned the word house, that when I say chimney, I don't mean a real chimney, but I'm meaning that his trunk reminds me of a chimney that would be attached to a house. So I'm going to say his chimney wags back and forth. Okay, so there it is. Now, if we're going to make this into a poem, we'd probably want to add some parts to our poem, maybe a bold. We might write elephant. Let's see. And let's see if it'll let me move it over real quick. This might not work, but we'll take a look. Yeah, okay, we'll move that to the middle, right? Because poems are lined up in the middle. And let's see, take a second there. Won't be too hard. Let's see, and then here. So when you do yours, I'd like you to kind of line it up in the middle too if you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just as long as I can see that you're remembering that poems line up in the middle of the page and they don't go on the edge. Do you remember the word that describes this little paragraph in a poem that I made here? That's right. Can you think of it? If you said stanza, you are correct. And I have 5 what? What are these called? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What? Those are 5 lines. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and practice reading my elephant poem. An elephant is as big as a house. He is huge and gray. His ears flop around in the breeze. The elephant lifts his head. His chimney wags back and forth. All right, so there we go. I want you to go ahead and read your poem over when you write it. And then also, after you're finished, you're going to go and read what you come up with to somebody, a family member in your home. And I've attached a couple questions at the end of this email for you to answer as well about what it felt like to read your poem to somebody. I wish you the best of luck. You guys can do it, and have a great e-learning day.